Coming up on By the Book, join host Dorothy Spalding and today's leading authors with in-depth interviews, stories, and discussions, offering unique insight into the authors, their influences, and their latest works. Tune in today as Dorothy welcomes Charlene MacLaren. Be sure to watch By the Book.
It's great.
How did you do it?
By the book.
Where did you find that?
Did you see By the Book?
Yeah, it's a great show. By the book.
New releases and authors?
I thought it was a great read.
I think I'm going to buy the book.
It's the best.
Did you get it?
You should.
Do it by the book.
The best authors.
New releases.
Let's watch.
By the Book.
Welcome to By the Book. I'm your host, Dorothy Spalding, and I have a novel for you today. Novels are always exciting, and Charlene MacLaren has written 3 of them. One is, what's number 1?
Well, number 1 is called Hannah Grace. Number 2 is called Maggie Rose. And number 3, the current one that's out right now, is called Abby Ann. And this is a series. It's the series title is The Daughters of Jacob Kane.
So who's Jacob Kane?
Jacob Kane is this wonderful man that runs a general store in the small town of Sandy Shores, Michigan. And Sandy Shores, Michigan is in West Michigan along the shoreline of Lake Michigan. And to tell you the truth, the series takes place in my hometown, which is Grand Haven, Michigan, but I gave it a fictional title, the town.
So are the stories of real people that you know?
No, this is all
made 'em
fiction.
up?
They're all fiction. And the reason I gave the town a fictional name is because I didn't want people from my town coming up to me and saying, you know, that really didn't happen in our town. This didn't really happen in Grand Haven.
Yes.
And then I can say, I know it didn't. It happened in Sandy Shores, the fictional town.
So you live, now how far is that from Shipshewana, Indiana?
Well, Grand Haven, Spring Lake, actually I live in Spring Lake, which is a small town about 1 mile away from Grand Haven. But they are probably 2 hours, 2.5 hours north of Shipshewana. And I love Shipshewana.
That's where my family lives.
I love Shipshewana.
So
we visit there as often as we can.
It's a wonderful place, isn't it?
It is. I just love it.
For all you viewers, if you ever want to take a vacation to an Amish country,
yes,
go
that's
to
the place to
Shipshewana,
go.
Indiana.
That's the place to go. It really is.
Isn't it great?
All the clip clop of the horses. I love that. And the buggies.
And the buggies.
Yes.
Oh, and the food.
Oh my, yes.
The food is great, and so is the flea
and the
market.
fudge.
And the fudge. It's all wonderful in Shipshewana, Indiana.
Yes.
But this story takes place 2 hours north.
Yes,
2.5 hours north.
It does.
And tell me about Jacob Kane a little bit more. He's a businessman, has a shop.
Yes, he's a businessman. He also runs an insurance company. But the stories themselves really are based upon his daughters. I have 3 books in the series, and they are all devoted to one of his daughters. Each daughter is different, very different in personality, but they all have some similarities too. They all have that little feisty side to them. They're very independent. And they all fall in love in my stories,
so
because I write Christian fiction, but it's always got
a little of romance.
An element of romance. And I also love to include an element of mystery, suspense, lots of just fun things.
Fun things?
Yeah.
Well, what's fun things?
Well, as far as Abby Ann goes, which is my current book right now that's on the market. It is about this girl that helps run the general store. The general store is called The Whatnot.
The Whatnot.
The Whatnot. Isn't that kind of a cute little name? And she runs the general store along with her father. And she is also very involved in the women's movement known as the Christian Women's Temperance Union. Now, this was a very popular group back in the days of Prohibition, before Prohibition, and actually the Women's Christian Temperance Union is still a vital program today. It's a vital organization that is an international organization, but they were back in the early 1900s, were quite involved in helping to pass the Prohibition movement.
So what are they doing today?
Well, they are very active in fighting drug problems with youth. They are involved with women's rights, and they were also very active back in the early 1900s in the suffrage movement, the women's right to vote. And so it's it was a very worthwhile organization, and still is today, but they were very, very, very active in passing women's suffrage and women's rights to vote, and active in women's rights and the protection of women in the workforce and that type of thing.
So what does she do? This girl, Abby Ann.
Abby Ann, as I said, she is active she's actually the president of her local organization of the Women's Temperance, of the Women's Christian Temperance Union. And so she's very opposed to all the saloons that are running rampant in her small town. And she's all about closing down all of these saloons.
So she's very out there.
She's very out there, yes. And back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, these women would organize these groups, and they would actually go into the saloons and they would pray. They would get right down on their knees and they would pray for the people who were operating these saloons and so forth. And they got their fair share of enemies because of this.
Well, I bet they did.
Yes, they did.
And I can just see them on the floor praying, and some drunk
and
come
singing
over
hymns.
and singing hymns,
yes.
and somebody bopping them with a bottle.
Now, on my cover, you will see that there is a ship as well. And so the secondary character, or I shouldn't really call him a secondary character, because Abby Ann and the other character that plays alongside her, who she ends up falling in love with, and I don't want to create any big spoilers here, but he's a shipbuilder, and he comes from the east, from Connecticut, and he's a divorced man with a child. And Abby Ann is determined not to have any attraction to this man, because, well, he's divorced, and divorce in those days was very frowned upon. And so therefore she fought her attraction to him. And because he was divorced, he fought his attraction toward her as well. And
so they know they care for each other, but they,
absolutely,
get this close, and then all of a sudden,
they fight against it. And he has a little son that Abby Ann cares very much for, and that sort of helps to draw the two of them together.
What are some of the, and I know you can't tell it all, but you know, sometimes I think the more we tell about a book, the more people want to read it.
Sure.
I mean, that's me. I have to make it so I really want to read this book.
Absolutely.
And what about some of the hardships in there? What are some of the things that they go through?
Well, back in the 1800s, or this is actually early 1900. This story takes place in 1908, but there are a lot of hardships, just as there are today and in every age that we've lived. But that was the beginning of, just the very beginnings of automobile traffic. There were telephones, but not in all of the homes. There was the beginning of electricity, and so